Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are still on chapter 4 of this book, Positive Islamic Psychology, a transcendent model to achieve peace, happiness and success in the 21st century, as a way forward to transform the ummah to be a positive, well-developed ummah in the 21st century. This is the aim of our book, even though it is psychology, but it is generally motivational, and also how we are going to shape our family, our children towards a better future in terms of their life in this world. So I have been talking about chapter 4 on holistic human behavior and the laws of learning. Today I'm going to give you an application of the laws of learning, how conditioning and reinforcement affects tantrum behavior. So you know tantrum behavior is now a major problem. You can see children in the shopping complexes rolling over, hitting their head on the wall and so on, just doing all kind of tantrum behavior that is very extreme, and they can even hurt themselves. So how does all this begin, and why it all begin? It begins by conditioning and reinforcement. So I'm going to talk you how you can overcome tantrum behavior. If you are a parent or you are a grandfather, how you can actually shape the child to become, first of all, normal. I mean, we need normal children, wonderful children, happy children. No doubt there are some pain, some suffering, some difficulties, some ones that they cannot get. But you cannot allow them to go way off tantrum until you cannot control them. And then it will reach to a level of self-harm. And later on, as you grow up in life, it can even lead to suicidal ideation because of the shaping process that you did not do while they are young. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit from our book, The Effect of Schedule of Reinforcement and Tantrum Behavior. This is Professor Muhammad Mahdi Jenkins writing. This is, for example, there is an example here. There is a young boy of 4 years old. Wherever he doesn't get his way, he throws a tantrum. Sometimes his parents give in to him as soon as tantrums begin. But other times, since they are becoming accustomed to his tantrum, they let him go with his tantrums for a long time until the noise and the screaming rises so high that it becomes unbearable. For the parents, it's unbearable, and they can't stand it anymore. Well, in this example, the little boy's tantrum behavior is the response being conditioned. Tantrum behavior is both being maintained at a high rate and shaped to a higher intensity by the intermittent reinforcement offered by the parent. So the parent inevitably, without knowing, out of their ignorance in terms of basic discipline as well as psychology of the child, allow this to take place and become a major problem in the child's life. Why this is so? The child is rewarded for his tantrum by getting his own way. The parents are rewarding their son's tantrum behavior on a variable schedule ratio. So we have the variable ratio schedule, as I mentioned to you in the previous few videos. This is how sometimes you give in, sometimes you do give in, and finally you give in. So this variable schedule reinforcement will cause that child to try harder and harder and harder. The moment he gets it, it's okay. And the next time he try harder and harder and harder and harder and harder, and he gets it. So this variable schedule type of conditioning and reinforcement, whether it is punishment, even sometimes they are being beaten, but still in the end they get it, is even worse. All right? The parents are rewarding their son's tantrum behavior on a variable ratio schedule. This ensures that tantrum will occur more often than that they will be very resistant to extinction. That means you cannot stop this thing. Extinction means to slow down or fading, to fade it out. So these are psychological terms, extinct that tantrum behavior completely, which is not possible in a short while. Fading, you can fade it out over a period of time by having the right tools in terms of the shaping process. And as well, we have our book, Shaping Excellent Character. We have a small booklet, Shaping Excellent Character, which you give to parents, how you want to shape your child to become excellent children. And this is how we use this book in our school, primary school and secondary school, where we try to shape our children with very little punishment, with a lot of encouragement and positive reinforcement, that they become wonderful children, and there's no tantrum behavior there. How can it be done? It is by understanding the law of learning, understanding how you can positive reinforcement can affect the child's behavior towards being a good, wonderful a healthy, normal child. Okay, so this variable schedule, this ensures that the tantrum will occur more often and that they will be very resistant to extinction. This is a very good answer in the sense that conditions the tantrum behavior will not only increase in number but will become louder and more violent. So first they make loud noise, second they will roll around the floor, thirdly they will hit their head against the wall. By then you give up and that's it. They know, oh, now hitting at the higher level, hitting the head against the wall will be rewarded with whatever that they want, whether it's an ice cream or to get a toy or whatever it is. It has happened in such pathological situation that the children has come to harm themselves or others severely during this uncontrolled tantrum. This critical situation doesn't arise suddenly, but is conditioned through a series of small steps over a period of long time. So this is where the conditioning and the shaping process has taken place, and we are a party to that. So a lot of parents are a party to the tantrum behavior of the child. The child is normal, but because of the ignorance of the parents, they are not able to bring about the, what we call it, kind discipline, so that the child will have a wonderful behavioral pattern that is rewarded, not the negative tantrum behavioral pattern that is rewarded through variable ratio scheduling of conditioning. So we have to have a lot of responsibility, particularly when children are very young. The parents must accept a great deal of responsibility for the behavioral pattern of their children's development. So the behavioral pattern of the child is the responsibility of the parents or the grandparents or the caregivers, or how they're going to shape this child. I purposely use the word responsibility instead of the word blame. Responsibility only indicates the degree of significance of the natural influence which occur in the early parent-child relationship. Blame has an associated meaning beyond responsibility. It's as if the person has done something bad and perhaps should be punished. Blame often results in guilt. Guilt is not a beneficial state of mind, especially if the parent feels guilty. So that is not a beneficial state of mind. They will then give in more to the tantrum behavior because they feel guilty that they have not fulfilled the desire of the child. But this is what is happening. We have a lot of spoiled brat all over the world, whether it's in Malaysia, in the West, or wherever. Whenever they have risen to a certain level of economic well-being, especially those who are not difficult. For example, if it's not possible for a child, for example, who is a child labor to throw tantrum because they will be beaten up so badly that they just become docile and they just do. For example, they are child labor at 6 years old, knocking stones in Bangladesh or in India or in Sub-Sahara and so on. So there's no temper tantrum there. They are beaten so badly that their only choice of survival is to be docile and just do their work at 6 years old. All right? But those from the middle class family, those who can go out shopping in the shopping complexes, you see this happening every day. And this situation seems to get worse and worse and worse. Why? Ignorance of child, parent responsibility in shaping through positive reinforcement. So there's no feeling of guilt. Responsibility for something which has gone wrong should lead to a different behavior in the future. Guilt needs not be felt for most wrong behavior. Wrong behavior should be recognized for what it is and serve as a cue to behave differently in the future. In such a case, the wrong behavior function as a discriminative stimulus which indicate a different, more positive behavior will be reinforced. Guilt is one of the most common forms of punishment at human level of existence. Before we get away from the example of the learned tantrum behavior, it will be relevant to define the word we use in this example. It was the word pathological. The word pathological refers to a disease or illness. I use the word to indicate the sickness of human society which result in certain negative behavior and social interaction which condition these wrong behaviors. Both the tantrum behavior and the interaction between the parent and child which condition that tantrum behavior are symptom of an insane society. This is a bit extreme. Prof. Muhammad Bani Jenkins, he says we are leading towards an insane society where there is even in certain places where you cannot even punish a child in whatever, even in a positive way. So these are situational conditions of the 21st century that we Muslims must be able to find guideline. And our approach will be kind discipline. That's why in the Khalifah method, we have our Khalifah method. You can read through the shaping excellent character, or how we're going to shape. In Bahasa, it's called membentuk pribadi cemerlang. How we want to bring the natural beauty of the child to grow up beautifully as a true and sincere servant of Allah, and always infusing them the correct values. And what are the correct values that we infuse? Always from the early age we tell them, you are loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah has appointed us, all of us, as his good servant, or his custodian, or his vicegerent, his Khalifa on this earth. And all we need to do is shape ourselves to make ourselves good, help others to be good, and make the world good. And we practicalize this every day. So when a child practices this kind of good behavior, for example, when they throw a temper tantrum, they are not rewarded. But when they are not throwing a temper tantrum, and they are gentle, they are good, they are so smiling, then we tell, say, Ahmad, you're good today. Why not I give you something? Let's go out, okay, and have, you want to play, right? Like, let's go to the field and I'll play football with you. So you reward good behavior and you deprive tantrum behavior. And slowly you will shape this, and that go through the whole fading process, and finally it will be extinct. So if a child by the age of 5 or 6 years old cannot control their temper tantrum, they are destined for failure in life. Remember these parents. Your child is destined for failure in life because they cannot control their temper tantrum. And this is a very major problem in our society today, in Muslim society, non-Muslim society, and they become psychologically pathological. So you need counselors and teachers and so on, and you go to the school system, it's all breaking down. Why? They cannot control the kids. It started from this severe problem of ill discipline and the wrong notion of the allowing temper tantrum is okay, they will just pipe through it. No, it does not, because the conditioning process will even be worse in the long term. So that's why, as Muslims, we must shape excellent character. And to shape excellent character within ourselves, as an example to our children, within our children, our family, our friends, our society, we can then show such beauty of this deen, that we do not do evil things, we do not harm people, we do not hurt people, we are gentle to our children are well disciplined, they are not throwing tantrums all over the place, and they lead a wonderful, happy, joyful expression of their existence on this earth, which is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained upon. Naturally, there will be suffering, there will be difficulties in life, there will be deprivation. That is part and parcel of our existence on this plane of the physical dunya. That is what Allah has mentioned in the Quran. That will be tested with loss of wealth, with disease, with hunger, with famine, with war, and so on. This is mentioned in the Quran, that we will suffer. But if we can take, to a certain extent, our suffering in a positive manner, and then turn it around to become something that is first tolerable, and at second level, we can then transcend that to become something that we can accept, and then at the highest level, we can grow out of that suffering. So for a child also, it's the same thing. This whole idea of throwing temper tantrum is punishment, and it's also suffering for the child. Don't allow them to suffer in silence. Learn how to use, how to shape excellent character using the Khalifa method. And you can find also one chapter on this book on being the Khalifa of Allah. This practical example, you can find it in the later chapters. Read it, apply it, and inshallah, we will then create a wonderful ummah where our children are so beautifully groomed and brought up without temper tantrum, feeling the best that they have from their parents, their society, and the world, and inshallah always striving to make themselves good, helping others to be good, making the world good, inshallah.